how do we find out coordinates of any given point on the x-axis? Now, we have learned how do we find out coordinate of any given point P. So in this example, we have a point P. So this is the point P. And the way we find out the coordinates is that we draw perpendicular on the y-axis and x-axis like this. And then we say that the coordinate of the point P is represented by within bracket parenthesis x comma y, where what is x? X is the x coordinate of the point is how far away from origin along x-axis is the point. That means when we drop the perpendiculars on both the axes, so this is, for example, our x-axis, x dash. This is x-axis and this is the y-axis, y dash. Now, when we drop the perpendicular, this perpendicular is the perpendicular on the y-axis. Let's say this point is A, that is this point is A, and let's say this point is B. So B is the perpendicular on the x-axis. So these two are 90 degrees. So we say the x coordinate of this point P, this is the point whose coordinates we are trying to find out. So we say x coordinate is how far is this point from origin along x-axis. So this is the point, this is the origin. This is the origin which we represent by uppercase letter O for origin. So how far is this point from the origin along x-axis? Now this is 4 units. So OB, the distance OB is called the x coordinate. Also sometimes we call it abscissa. So this will be OB. And similarly we have seen that the y coordinate of the point will be how far away the point is from origin along y-axis. So the y coordinate will be how far is this point away from origin along y-axis? That will be OA. And y coordinate is also sometimes known as ordinate. So this will be OA. So we have seen this before. So this is how we say the coordinate of any point within bracket x comma y. So we say that point P, we write the point P as basically in this case x comma y, x for x coordinate, y for y coordinate, or we say point P in this case is, so the two numbers x will be, x coordinate will be how far from x coordinate from the origin, this will be 4, and then how far from y, this along the distance of P from origin along y-axis, this will be 6. So this is how we represent coordinates of a point. We have also seen the coordinate of origin. Like we discussed, this point is called the origin, which we represent by uppercase O. O for, if we can think of this as O for origin. And the coordinate of the point O is 0, 0. We have learned this before. So now, for example, if we want to find out coordinate of any point on x-axis, how do we do that? So this is the x-axis. So we know x dash is the x-axis and y dash is the y-axis. So when we say any point on x-axis, what we mean is this is x-axis, and let's say for example if we have a point over here. Let's call this point A. So what is the coordinate of A? Similarly, let's say we can have a point here B. So what will be the coordinate of the point B? Or we can also take a point on the left side of the origin. So this is origin, this is O. And let's say if we take this point, let's call this point C. So the question is, how do we find out the coordinates of these points? They are all on the x-axis, right? They are actually on the x-axis. So let's take one by one. So what can we say about the coordinates of the point A? So how far away is point A? So we know that whenever we take coordinates of any point, so let's write over here. So coordinate of A will be, there will be a x, the coordinate of the point A, it will have a x coordinate and it will have a y coordinate, right? So what will be the x coordinate? So the x coordinate will be equal to how far away is the point from origin along x-axis. So this point is this many units away, right, from the origin along x-axis, which is 5 in this case. So we will say The x coordinate for point A is 5. Now, let's say, what about the y coordinate? What can we say of this point? How far away is this point from origin along y-axis? Now, remember, if let's say we had a point over here, right? Let's call this point as P. What is the y coordinate? Y coordinate is simply the distance away from origin measured along y-axis. So, for example, for us here, if we were to draw a perpendicular like this, right, then this length is the y coordinate, right? That means how far away is this point from origin along y-axis. So in this case, if you bring the point from here to, let's say, here or here, so what happens to the y coordinate? The y coordinate value continuously reduces, right? So this point will be having a smaller y coordinate, because then it will be only this distance. And if the point is here, the y coordinate will be even less. So what happens when the point actually sits exactly on the x-axis? What happens to the y coordinate? Well, the y coordinate becomes 0. So for point A, there is no y coordinate, right? Because how far away from origin is the point along y-axis? It is at 0. It only has an x coordinate. Along x-axis, how far is it away from origin? But as far as the distance along y-axis goes, it is 0. So we write 0. So we say the coordinates of the point A, we write this as A as 5, 0. What about point B? Similarly, we can see for point B, we see that the x coordinate is equal to how much? X coordinate is how far from origin along x-axis. So in this case, if this is 6, 7, this looks like this is 8. So we say x equals 8 units, because along x-axis, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units away. Now, what about along y-axis? Again, it will be 0, right? So we write the point B as 8, 0. So for point C, what can we say? Well, for point C, we say that how far away is it from x-axis? So the point C, along x-axis, how far is it away from the origin? We see it is 1, 2, 3, 4, but this is minus 4. Remember that this is origin. So OX is the positive direction of the x-axis and OX dash is the negative direction. So anything on the left of O along x-axis is negative. So this is 4 units away, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we say x coordinate for C is minus 4. And y, what about the y coordinate? Again, y coordinate will be 0. So in general, what we see is that whenever we have any given point which is actually on x-axis itself, then these points typically will have a x coordinate and 0. The y coordinate value will be 0. There will be only a x coordinate component. And if the point is on the right side, that is, if the point is on OX, it will be a positive value. If the point is on OX dash, it will be a negative value.